Amandla. Amandla. Viva EFF, viva. Ayule EFF, ayule. Tata EFF, tata. Tata EFF, tata. Thank you very much. Let's settle down, fighters, the national chairperson, members of the Central Command team, leaders of the provincial and regional command teams, international guests, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, comrades from EFF structures across Africa, African continent, and in the diaspora, and all revolutionary delegates gathered here today. I stand here before you to extend heartfelt and revolutionary welcome to this historic third National People's Assembly of the Economic Emancipation Movement. We acknowledge with great appreciation the presence of delegates from our branches and regional and provincial command teams whose unwavering commitment to the revolution is the bedrock of our movement. To our comrades representing the Central Command team, international guests and diplomatic corps, your solidarity inspires our collective struggle. We extend revolutionary greetings and express gratitude to all those who sent their well wishes but could not join us today. To those who have been able to join us, your presence reaffirms the solid power of the call for economic freedom in our lifetime. Comrades, I stand before you today to welcome you all to this great festival of the branches of the EFF, the Third National People's Assembly of the Economic Emancipation Movement. Fellow fighters, today marks the achievement, yet again, of what many thought would not be possible as we stand before you to mark the continued life of this organization of the working class. We stand here today as a generation that has inherited the struggle for liberation and declared for all to know that we are a generation of economic freedom in our lifetime. Comrade delegates, we stand here not representing ourselves, but our ancestors who bled so we can stand here today and continue the historic struggle for the land and the economy to return to the native people of Africa. We stand here resilient, fearless, and determined to attain the goals and objectives of the millions who have come before us, who died fighting against colonial domination and exploitation. Fighters and compatriots, our presence here is another act of defiance and a page in the history books of the revolution which should never be forgotten. We have earned our rightful place and stand on the shoulders of giants who demonstrated that no determined effort to break us will ever succeed because we represent the wills and aspirations of liberation heroes who died for our freedom. We stand on the shoulders of the Khoi and the San people, King Hintsa, Chief Manqoma, King Tsukukuni, King Makado, and King Shaka, Ka Senga Kakona, who despite being armed with less sophisticated armaments, displayed conviction and fearlessness that gave them the strength and resolve to wage courageous wars of resistance. We stand on the shoulders of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Robert Sobukwe, Steve Biko, Peter Mokaba, Chris Hani, Mama Gaddafi, Thomas Sankara, Amilcar Cabral, Queen Nzinga, and many African giants who, despite a system determined to break the spirit of our people, refused to die and continue to live because of the ideas they represent. Fellow fighters, our presence here, after deliberate and coordinated efforts to destroy us, is another sign that the African spirit can never be broken. Delegates, and the people of South Africa. The National People's Assembly of the EFF is the highest demonstration of democracy within the EFF and an exhibition of our commitment to being an organization that belongs to its own members. In the past 11 years, we have held a gathering of this nature, which constitutes itself as the highest decision-making body of our movement, on 2 occasions, having held the first National People's Assembly in Mangaung in the Free State in 2014, and the second National People's Assembly here in Nazareth in 2019, Johannesburg. Since our inception, despite the negative caricature of the EFF as a movement characterized by dictatorship, we have remained committed to this internal democratic process without fail. The NPA is a political sitting defined by ideas that will shape not only the direction of our movement, but also the direction of the country, the continent, and the posture of the left on international affairs. The NPA is a gathering of delegates from the most basic and organic units of our movement, the branches, and it is here that we will reflect on the gains, losses, and future of our generation. The NPA will determine the political direction of the movement, receive reports, engage in discussion documents, and ultimately give a mandate to a new crop of leaders who will constitute the Central Command team for the next 5 years. Fellow fighters, all our National People's Assemblies have occurred at definitive moments in the history of South Africa. And after these sittings, the EFF has managed to dictate and determine the political discourse in our country. The first National People's Assembly occurred when the nation was reeling from the tragedy of the brutal massacre of the 34 lone mine workers in Marikana. And the former liberation movement had a firm electoral grip on our democracy, which gave them a sense of impunity, resulting in high levels of unchecked corruption. It was the formation of this movement, people's movement, that brought the Marikana massacre into the corridors of parliament and shook the former liberation movement to its core, disrupting the hegemony held over our political system. It was the first National People's Assembly that resolved that we will be the representative of the poorest of the poor, the dejected masses of our people, and that we will be found on the streets, in the picket lines, in the villages, on the farms, in the townships, in councils, in legislatures, and in parliament. It was at that first National People's Assembly that a weapon was given to the abused and forgotten masses of our people. A weapon for domestic workers, garden cleaners, petrol attendants, mine workers, hawkers, the millions of unemployed youth, and those in the corporate sector who suffer at the hands of racism on a daily basis. It was from that moment that the political terrain in South Africa was redefined and changed for the better. The years following the first National People's Assembly saw fear being struck in the hearts of racists and within the white supremacist and capitalist power structure itself, as a true revolutionary alternative had arrived to take the baton of centuries of struggle against colonialism. Fighters and people of South Africa, the Second National People's Assembly happened at a point when the white capitalist establishment was cementing itself in South Africa, and as a result, it identified the EFF as enemy number one. This identification of our movement as an enemy resulted in a concerted campaign to destabilize the movement through smear campaign. We resolved at that assembly to solidify our posture as an anti-racist and anti-capitalist movement despite these challenges. At this third National People's Assembly, we are faced with a new moment wherein the EFF experienced its first electoral decline and suffered unprecedented levels of sabotage and infiltration. It is for this reason, delegates, that the theme for this NPA is defend, rebuild, and advance the struggle for economic freedom. Because for the first time, the revolution is under a genuine threat of disruption that risks delaying our freedom for generations to come. We have a duty to defend the gains of our emancipation movement and the ideas of the revolution from distortion and sabotage, because attempt to destroy the EFF will set the freedom of our people back for another 100 years. It is our duty to rebuild this economic emancipation and the faith our people have in the principle of economic freedom and justice, because the EFF remain the most potent and viable weapon for the liberation of African people.